Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. You know, this month, the month of April, we're celebrating Leonardo da Vinci. His birthday is on April 15th, and all month we're celebrating da Vinci. Last week we did have a food historian and expert on, and today we are having Michelle Cox, who is an award-winning author. We're celebrating creativity as well to honor the master Leonardo da Vinci. So Michelle Cox will be our interview for today, and stay tuned all this month. We are having some other Renaissance and art historians and experts that are experts in da Vinci and everything da Vinci on later this month as well. And don't forget, I am giving away autographed copies of my book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Da Vinci Style, which is all about special towns and places that Leonardo da Vinci lived in Italy. One was in France, and recipes that are traditional in those particular towns and cities. And also, all of the chapters tell you which special projects that he did in those towns. And again, if you want to win an autographed copy of my book, like the show, take a photo of the recipes that we do on each show in the month of April and hashtag it the Maria Liberati Show. Place it on social media, share the show, like the show, and you'll be entered in a drawing to win an autographed copy of The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Da Vinci Style. And I just want to mention also, in honor of Da Vinci, who, you know, he was born in Tuscany. So we are doing on May 8th, it's a Tuscan picnic themed event. It will be a Tuscan picnic Mother's Day event, a virtual cooking class. So it's kind of a join along Tuscan picnic Mother's Day event class, cooking class. And I will be doing that on May 8th. From 1 till 3 p.m. Now, this event is interesting because it will be my first, since we had to stop doing live events, it will be my first combination live and virtual event. So this event will be hybrid, meaning I will allow, I'm allowed to have 10 live guests at the live event, and the rest can be virtual. So, and of course, if you're not in the area, so this event will be at this beautiful design showroom kitchen. It's Gaiman Design showroom in Harleysville, Pennsylvania on Main Street. I will be doing the event there at 1 to 3 p.m. And this will, again, it will be a Tuscan picnic Mother's Day brunch event. And cook along. So cook along for those of you that are on Zoom that are joining me virtually. You will be able to join me virtually. You don't have to be there live. Of course, if you're there live, you will be sampling. You will be getting samples at the event. And you can join us for this event. Go to eventbrite.com and register. You do have to register. Again, it's May 8th. That's Saturday. It's the Saturday before Mother's Day. So it's a really nice event to buy tickets for your mom or that special person in your life that's a mom, or anyone, or just come and join us. If you want to experience a taste of a Tuscan picnic, you can join us on May 8th from 1 to 3 p.m. And again, the live event will be at Gaiman's Design Kitchen, Gaiman Remodeling in Harleysville, Pennsylvania, at their showroom kitchens from 1 to 3 p.m. The Zoom virtual event will be, you can also do this as a virtual event if you like, and registration is limited. Sign up at eventbrite.com or marialiberati.com. There will be a link on my front page. So I'd love to see you there. I know we did an event last month in April for Easter. We had an Easter bake-along, and we had such a great time. I did get to meet everyone virtually, which was really nice too. Got to meet a lot of you. I really enjoyed meeting you, and I know a lot of you sent me emails creating how to create various versions of the traditional Easter bread that we did for the Easter bake-along. So again, I hope to see you there. And as I mentioned, so this month we are dedicating it to Leonardo da Vinci because this is his birthday month, April 15th. And Da Vinci was fascinated with spirals. This can be seen in the way he draws curly hair and water as nearly photorealistic. He obviously spent a lot of time studying the spiral shape. But why would such a simple shape be so fascinating? It could be because spirals appear all the time in nature, in unexpected areas at all scales, and they have interesting mathematical rules. Our own galaxy is a spiral. The curl of a fern is a spiral. The wind travels in spirals. Trees branch in spirals. Even the growths of flower petals and seeds follow spirals. They are everywhere in nature, and they are all surprisingly alike. There's no clear reason for this trend, which makes its prevalence even more fascinating. One possibility is that it's an extension of a circle or a sphere, which is the easiest shape for matter to take. Planets are spheres, and so are bubbles in many cells. Spirals follow the Fibonacci sequence, which is a sequence of numbers where the next number is the sum of the previous two numbers. This sequence is present in every life form. At a glance, spirals appear to be complete randomness, but after studying them, it's clear that they follow rigid patterns and part of a complex system that scales down to the size of an atom and up to the size of the universe. The spirals are also present in cooking. So, if you're going to ask me, well, what does this have to do with cooking? The spirals are also present in cooking. Whirls in water or broth follow spirals. So, when you whisk with a whisk, you get these spiral whirls. And vegetables grow their leaves in a spiral formation. Throughout history, spirals have been a symbol of growth and evolution. Leonardo's fascination with spirals seems to lead directly from his connection to nature. So by understanding spirals, you're better able to understand the proportions of nature. This interest influence his art as well as his food. Chew well, and whatever you take into you should be well cooked and of simple ingredients. That's a saying from Leonardo da Vinci that was found in his notebook. And I know we just talked about his fascination with spirals, but Da Vinci was a scientist as well as an artist, which could explain why many of his many interests was food. He was a vegetarian, preferring simple foods that could be combined into infinite flavors. And our expert last week, Dave Weiss, who wrote a really interesting book called Da Vinci's Secret Kitchen, told us a lot more about that, but he told us that Da Vinci was a vegetarian. He preferred simple foods. And if this sounds familiar, it might be because it's the basics of chemistry. Da Vinci was never a chemist because at the time, most scholars only knew alchemy, the early version of chemistry. He was never an alchemist either, but he used the methods he learned from alchemists in his painting. However, the basics of chemistry can be found in alchemy, the combination of elements to create something greater than the sum of their parts. An element is something that cannot be broken down into something simpler. One cannot break carbon down into something else without changing its atomic structure, for example. However, when elements are combined, they can create new substances. Hydrogen and oxygen create water, which is nothing like hydrogen or oxygen. The same principle can be applied to cooking. Simple foods can be considered elements. One cannot break down celery into a simpler form, for example, but these simple foods can be combined in nearly endless ways. Potatoes are a versatile example. Like carbon, potatoes can come in many forms. They can be rather used in many forms: fried, mashed, cubes. They can be added to a stew. They can be broiled and baked and roasted and grilled. Like carbon, potatoes, as I mentioned, can be in many different forms, and you can do so many different things with them. They can be added to a stew, used to make soup, or mashed and topped with gravy to make a side dish, among many other things. Kind of like how carbon is found in graphite pencils, precious diamonds, and building blocks of life forms. So there's all these different forms of potatoes as well as carbon. So you can kind of correlate the two. Chemical reactions change the properties of all ingredients and are irreversible, much like how carrots in soup will absorb the flavor of the ingredients around them and will not taste like pure carrots after being used in a recipe. Much like mixing primary colors to create an array of vibrant hues, DaVinci knew how to combine simple and unassuming ingredients into nearly infinite dishes. His observations on cooking and eating inspire chefs and foodies today. So the recipe that I'm going to share with you today, wow, all of this about DaVinci takes me back to a trip that I did in Chianti and a castle that I got to stay in, Castello d'Albala. It's a medieval wonder in Chianti. It's a castle with a vineyard that produces award-winning wines, and the castle is filled with so much history dating back to many a noble family. In honor of my visit there in the past, because we know, it's difficult to travel, and also because it's April, the month of Leonardo da Vinci, I'm sharing a traditional Tuscan soup recipe that dates back to the days of what's known as cucina povera, peasant kitchen times in Italy. And if you know anything about cucina povera or the peasant kitchen, that was the time that people were poor and had to make the best of whatever ingredients they could find or grow or just get together, pull together in any way, shape, or form. And people actually came up with incredible recipes because Italians love flavorful and delicious food. So they worked really hard to do that. So one of my favorite Tuscan dishes, it's actually considered a gourmet dish today. It's called Ribolita, which means boiled twice. And this is a recipe for Ribolita Toscana. It is 1 pound of cannellini beans, dry, soak them overnight, and then you're going to cook them for about 1 hour. 1 pound of red cabbage, 1 pound of the Savoy cabbage, a half a pound of fresh spinach cleaned, a half a pound of red ripe tomatoes, 1 potato, a fresh potato, 1 stick of celery, 1 carrot peeled and cleaned, 1 small onion, 2 garlic cloves, a dash of thyme, a dash of salt, a half a pound of crusty bread sliced thick, grated pecorino cheese, a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil, 8 cups of vegetable broth, and a handful of fresh parsley leaves chopped. Now, if you have to eat gluten-free, substitute that crusty bread I talked about. Get a gluten-free bread and substitute that for that crusty bread, and you're just going to toast it or put it under the broil function of your oven or broiler to get it real crispy. If you need to eat dairy-free, take out the pecorino cheese. Maybe you can sprinkle on some nutritional yeast. That gives it a little bit of a cheese flavor. Here's the directions. So you're going to place the beans in cold vegetable broth and cook until tender. Finely chop the onion, garlic, celery, carrot, and parsley. Place the oil in a sauté pan and place in chopped veggies. Sauté till golden brown, then add in the thyme and the other vegetables cut into large pieces. You can certainly add in other spices that you like also. I know I have right now some fresh parsley, fresh oregano in my garden, and I add that in when I have that available to me as well. Add in salt, pepper, and tomatoes. Add in some liquid from the boiling beans. So you're going to add in some of the liquid from the beans that are boiling because that will add some flavor. When the beans are tender, add in about 1/3 of the beans to the sauté pan. Place 1/3 of the bean mixture in a food processor and blend. Set the remaining 1/3 of the beans to the side. Of course, you're taking them out of the water. Add the processed beans to the sauté pan. Simmer for approximately 5 minutes. This is actually going to thicken the soup. Place a slice of bread at the bottom of a terracotta or earthenware serving bowls and ladle the soup on top of the bread. Garnish with the remaining third of the beans and serve. This soup is typically eaten the day after it's made. It's really flavorful, but you usually need a day to let all the flavors kind of soak in. That's why it's called Ribolita, twice boiled. And serve it with a drizzle of olive oil. And if you're interested in Castello d'Albola, you can find my interview with the winemaker on my blog. That's Castello d'Albola, D''Albola. And you can also find more information on my blog. We'll have this recipe on my blog at marialiberati.com. And the recipe comes from my book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, DaVinci Style. Create this recipe, take a picture, hashtag it The Maria Liberati Show, like my show, share my show, the podcast, and don't forget, hashtag The Maria Liberati Show, and you'll get a chance to win. You'll be entered in a drawing for an autographed copy of The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, DaVinci Style. So we have today a special guest, Michelle Cox, who is the author of the award-winning series, Henrietta and Inspector Howard, and that's won 50 international awards. Is that correct, Michelle?
Yes, that's right.
Can you show us, I know you were just showing me the latest edition, so it's a series, and A Child Lost is the latest in the series. Is that correct?
Yes, this is book 5, A Child Lost in the series.
Was that just released, or was it released a while ago?
It was actually released just last year.
Oh,
so during the pandemic.
Yes. Oh, well, that's a good time because we certainly have more time to read. So speaking of that, I know there's a lot of people at home more and more and looking for creative outlets. And I think writing is a great creative outlet. So I thought you could share with everybody how you got into writing, why you started writing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think I've always been a very creative person. And I think I toyed with being a writer, in high school and college, but I thought it was so scary that I kind of shied away from it and for a while pursued a different career path. But then, halfway through college, I just really couldn't deny my love of reading and writing and literature. And so I switched from pre-med to literature. So um then I was always looking for this. I still didn't have that courage to be a writer, but I was always creating in other ways. And then it really wasn't until fast forward until about 2012. My oldest, as a sophomore in high school, was diagnosed with ADHD. And then my second son, I felt like he had some issues too. And I just kind of had like a little, not a breakdown, but like this moment in time where I'm like, what are you doing? I was doing all this volunteer work. I was on all these committees. And I said, you know what, you just need to stop and figure out what's going on with these guys. And so I did, and I quit everything across the board, which is really hard for me because I'm kind of a yes person. And I got them back on track and kind of spent the time helping them and getting them the help they needed. And then I had this huge glut of time, and so I thought, you know what, you can either go back to all of your volunteer work, or you can maybe write the book that you were always wanting to write. And so I sat down and started to write. And it wasn't really to get published. It didn't have anything to do with that. It honestly didn't. It was more a personal challenge just to see if I could sit in a chair long enough to produce an actual book. And once I started, I really relished the creativity. It was just like pouring out of me. And I realized that I had finally found the right home for this creativity. So.
I think that I've always thought that everybody has a book inside them. I really do. I'm of that philosophy. So I think everybody, especially if they have some time on their hands and they have any inkling that they
might want to write, I think, I'm sure you'll agree with me. You should just sit down. As you said, it just starts pouring out of you. I think
Yeah.
that, that definitely would happen to most of us. You do have a book inside you. I know I always felt like that, and that's why I had gotten started with my book series. So, what do you have any top tips we could give new writers or people that are just thinking of maybe I should start trying to write?
Yeah, I would first of all, I think it's important to try to sit down and ask yourself why you're writing. Why do you want to write? Is it just that you, like you were saying, you have this book inside of you? Is it something that's on your bucket list? Or is this, possibly a career path? Because I think that the approach for those two different things, but they're different. And you can save yourself a lot of time and heartache and money if you kind of go into it knowing, which path you're going to go down. Um, I guess if I were going to be a career writer, I would approach it differently. Like, make sure you understand what the genre rules are for the particular book you're trying to write, and understand, maybe try to start educating yourself a little bit about the publishing side of things, and about, having to start building this brand and this, platform. And I'm not saying all that to be scary, because it's definitely something that you can do. But if that's one path. But if you're just writing to be creative and to sort of tap into something bigger than yourself, then, that's a different thing, where, you can just sort of concentrate more on that. But I would say, regardless of what path you're taking, I think the most important thing is to be disciplined. So you have to make time for it every single day. It's like your brain is like a muscle. And I'm of the strong conviction that you have to write every single day, whether you have something to say or not. It's kind of like exercise, or dieting. You have to just be committed to it. Nobody jumps out of bed in the morning and says, I can't wait to work out. I mean, I don't anyway. So it's kind of like that with writing. I mean, whether you feel like it or not, whether you feel inspired or not that day, you just have to sit down and do it.
Right. That's the one thing that I think people need to realize, that if you do something artistic, it is really difficult to have to get up every day. Sometimes, as you'll probably agree with me, the creativity just is flowing. And then other times it's nothing comes to you, nothing at all, and you try so many ways to get inspired, and it's just not. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, it's the middle of the night, so I do keep pen and paper. I don't know if you do it, but by my bed, because sometimes I'll just, you get these creative spurts and they just come. So yeah,
Right.
people should know, I guess, too, that if you're doing it for a living or want to do this as a career, you have to realize, yes, you have to make sure that you're able to do it. But you're right. I think for people too, it could be a very kind of just a creative outlet or a hobby. And,
Yeah.
try it. If you're just kind of afraid to, try it, just try it and do it as a creative outlet or a hobby. And then maybe, get a little bit, once you've tried it and you're kind of used to it, get a little bit, kind of tighten everything up and do just like you said, Michelle, about looking at researching the genre and what, rules for that and all of that. But one thing I know I hate, because I'm a creative person, I always hate to have to, you always have to look into the business side of things. But right, that's the realities of life. It's like, oh gosh, do I have to deal with that end of it? I just want to be a writer, and
Exactly.
agree with me, right? You can't. So tell us about some of the business side of writing, which, you eventually, if you want to publish your book and you want to sell your book, you have to really look into that.
Yeah, I mean, the first challenge is really to get published. And, that was kind of I think, as it is for everybody, it's kind of a long journey. And you go from thing to thing to thing. The good thing is that for writers right now, so there's sort of a plus and minus to writing in this sort of setting, is that there's so many ways to publish. There's of course the big houses, and then of course there's self-publishing. I am actually with a hybrid press, and we're sort of in between those two things. And that offers some benefits of both of these sort of ends of the spectrum. Um, so yeah, there's that whole publishing piece. And then once you're published, however it is that you're published, I mean, this is the downside of writing right now. I think that there's 1 million books published every year worldwide between traditional and self. And so that requires, a lot of effort to sort of stand out in that pile. So, there's like a whole, PR marketing side of this that you have to sort of think about. I was very encouraged by my publisher, She Writes Press, we are all encouraged to hire a PR company because they're such a small publisher. They do not provide PR or marketing.
Uh-huh.
So I did hire a national firm, and that was quite expensive. But they did teach me a lot. They helped me to get my brand sort of going. They started me on because when I started writing, I didn't even have a smartphone. I wasn't online at all.
Uh-huh.
So I had to really, catch up and get a Facebook page and all this kind of stuff. So they really helped me with that, and they helped me to get some of the bigger reviews, like from Kirkus and Pop Sugar and BuzzFeed and all of that kind of stuff. So put me sort of in front of those people that I couldn't have gotten in front of.
Yeah.
So I would encourage writers, if you are trying to do this as a career, to at some point maybe consider even a small package with a PR marketing firm, because they can get you some things that you can't get. And mostly for me, it was just a huge education. So by the time, book 5 came out, I was able to do a lot of that myself. But that's because I had learned so much from the 4 years that I had worked with the PR company.
Yes, I mean, now really there's so much information online. If you have some time, you can actually kind of, and I know people that have, you can kind of teach yourself. Now, of course, you have to have a little bit of an inkling towards marketing, and if you're absolutely right. If you have no idea and you're really afraid, then the best thing is to maybe do that, to hire a PR firm and let them kind of steer you in the right direction first. If you are somebody that likes to research, or you have an inkling for marketing or publicity, research it online. You can find anything. I love about the internet. You can find anything you want to find out about online if you take the time.
Right.
So, but anyway, but you're absolutely right. Well, those are all great tips for us, and I'm sure hopefully there's somebody out there that we're going to get started in at least writing, if you're not doing it for a career, to just write. It is very cathartic too. You'll find that it's cathartic, and if you're going through, people talk about being home a lot now and they need a creative outlet or something. Don't sit in front of the TV and just watch TV. Just get pen and paper, or my favorite way, I don't know about you, Michelle, do you like to write by hand? That's my favorite thing. I still like to write by hand. I don't know. Some people tell me they do too, but eventually it does have to go on the computer. But when I initially start, I just love the feel of the pen and the paper. So, but I don't know how do you write on first, or
I used to, because again, same with you. That's so familiar to me. And that's the way I wrote in college. But I still outline by hand, but I found that it's too time consuming to write that way. So I kind of had to teach myself to write a first draft on computer instead of with a pen and paper.
And there are people now that are writing on their smartphone. Have you heard about? There are people that start writing novels on their smartphone. So I haven't learned how to do that yet.
Oh God, no.
Yes, it is time consuming. I agree. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for being with us and sharing all these tips. And I'm sure everybody, tell us where everybody can find you,
Oh, yeah.
and where they can find your books.
Yeah, great. Okay. So you can go to my website, michellecoxwrites.com, and you can find all of my social media links there. I also encourage everybody to sign up for my newsletter because I have huge giveaways every couple of months for one lucky subscriber. So I give away iPads and full sets of books, and I gave away an old-fashioned radio one time, and china and scarves, and you name it. I put together these beautiful packages, and then I pick one subscriber to win. So, and then you can also, follow me and what I'm up to and what the books are up to. They are all out on audio right now, by the way, in case people don't have time to read and would rather just listen. So yeah, that's where you can find me, michellecoxwrites.com.
Great. And Michelle, what's the name of your latest book again? Do you want to hold that up?
Yeah, sure. The latest is A Child Lost.
Okay.
So you can get it at Amazon, of course. You can get it at your indie bookstore. You can also get it at your library. So check it out.
Well, I'm sure everybody will be checking that out. Michelle, thank you so much for being here on the Maria Liberati Show, and hopefully we'll see you in the near future when you have another release out, another book.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Maria. This was fun.
You're welcome. Yes, it was. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. This is Maria Liberati, and I'm signing off. But before I do, I wanted to remind you, please join us for the Tuscan Picnic Cook-Along for Mother's Day. It's an event that we're having on May 8th. I'm doing this. There are 2 versions of the event. If you're in the Philadelphia area, you can join us live if you register in time, because there's only a small amount of registrants we can allow. We'll be having it at Gaiman Design. It's a showroom kitchen in Harleysville, Pennsylvania. There's only a small number of registrants that can do the live event, but I would love to see you there. And if you're not in the area, you can Zoom in. I'd love to see you by Zoom, so Zoom into the event. The live event is Saturday, May 8th from 1 to 3 p.m. You can register for this on eventbrite.com or marialiberati.com. So please join us. I'd love to see you at this Tuscan Cook-Along Mother's Day event. Please join me. And also don't forget, if you create this episode's recipe, Ribolita Toscana, or the recipe from last week, which I think we did a Charlotte Milanese, hashtag, take a picture of your recipe, hashtag it the Maria Liberati Show, share it on social media, share the show, like the show, and you will be entered in a drawing for an autographed copy of my book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, DaVinci Style. And you can find The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, DaVinci Style, along with the other books in the series, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking and The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Holidays and Special Occasions, at marialiberati.com, at artoflivingprimamedia.com, which is the publisher, on Amazon, on Kindle, and almost anywhere you can find books online. You can find the books there. There's also the Basic Art of Cooking series, which is actually a smaller, I call them bursts of books. So they're short books on specific topics. We have the Basic Art of Coffee, the Basic Art of Cocktails, the Basic Art of Pizza, the Basic Art of Pasta, the Basic Art of Creating a Tuscan Wedding, the Basic Art of Experiencing Venice. Those books you can also find at my website, marialiberati.com, artoflivingprimamedia.com, and anywhere you can find books online. The Basic Art of Italian Cooking is a culinary memoir series where I share recipes and stories about my life in Italy. I did study the culinary arts there and my experiences there. The Basic Art of series does have some little stories in them, but they're shorter books. So please enjoy the books. They're there and you can get a copy. But as I said, again, don't forget, share today's episode, like my show, share my show, and you'll be entered in a drawing to win the Basic Art of Italian Cooking DaVinci style. I'd also like to thank for helping to make this a great episode my producer, Britton Roselle. I have to thank Michelle Cox, who was my guest for this week's episode, award-winning author Michelle Cox, and my production intern, Alexandra Troy, all for helping us make this a great episode. And until next time, you can also find me on Twitter at Maria Liberati with a capital M, on Facebook at Chef Maria Liberati, on Instagram at Maria Liberati, on LinkedIn at M Liberati, and on Pinterest. Also, you can find me at all those places, and of course you can find me on my blog at marialiberati.com and my website marialiberati.com. Until next week, peace, love, and pasta.